From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme Three Podcast.
Welcome back, cinephiles, cinema lovers, movie appreciators, and of course, our family and friends to the Gimme Three Podcast, a series for cinephiles. I'm your co-host, Bella Efstratis, and today I'm missing my wonderful co-host, Nicholas Ibarra, but never fear, Nick will be returning to Gimme Three after next week's episode. So stay tuned for our reunion episode coming to you soon. But today, I'm so excited to be joined by yet another amazing guest, introducing one of my best friends, a brilliant actor and filmmaker, a tried and true cinephile, Trey Armstrong. Welcome, Trey.
Wow, that was the best introduction I've ever gotten for anything. Actor, filmmaker, that's a lot. Thank you.
You got a talented man. But yeah, it's it's such a pleasure to have you here on the Gimme Three Podcast, and I'm just so excited for our episode today. So for this episode, I asked Trey to choose 3 films from his favorite actor's filmography. Who is this favorite actor, you say? Well, it's none other than the fucking GOAT, Denzel Washington. Excellent choice, Trey. Before we officially list the lineup for today, I wanted to ask you if you can remember the first Denzel Washington movie you watched, and then tell us your favorite if you have one, and if it's not the same as the first one that you watched.
The first one that I watched is either Man on Fire or Remember the Titans.
Nice.
Titans was probably when I was a lot younger. My dad went to the high school that's based around Remember the Titans, and Denzel's character in that was my dad's high school gym coach.
What?
Yeah, before my dad transferred. That's a whole other story. But TC High School in Virginia is where my dad went to high school for the first 2 years, and Coach Denzel's character was his gym teacher. So that was my first introduction to Denzel. And over the years,
that is so cool.
Yeah, it's unreal. My cousin / uncle, because he's a lot older than me, so I just call him uncle, was on that team. You Remember the Titans, which is awesome. Yeah, so that movie means a lot to me personally. My parents both liked Denzel a lot. My dad took me to a Broadway show to go see Denzel, The Iceman Cometh, with Austin Butler as well. Long history with Denzel Washington. Forever my favorite.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I can't believe that you have like a personal connection in your family with that. That's so sick.
Yeah, that movie means a lot. Yeah.
So is that your favorite out of all that you've seen, or could you ever even choose a favorite?
I'd have to say
hard.
That's
a hard question. I'm sorry.
No worries. That's what it's all about. I would probably say my favorite is probably, I'd have to say The Devil in a Blue Dress or Training Day. One of those two. Training Day I'm always quoting, especially when I have a few drinks in me. I just start and I get going on.
Let's hear the impression.
King Kong.
No, I missed it.
That's it.
I love it.
Shit. But yeah, what about you? What do you think? What's your favorite Denzel?
Oh man. I have to admit, I have not seen a lot of Denzel, which is so embarrassing. And that's why I was also so excited for this episode to like officially have a big reason to just go headfirst into Denzel back to back. But I don't know. Devil in a Blue Dress was unreal. Like that was probably my favorite watch out of the 3 for today. I think I would have to say that. Or I loved Tragedy of Macbeth as well. I thought that was really good. But Devil in a Blue Dress is more Denzel in a way. So I liked that one a lot. And then my first Denzel Washington film I ever watched was The Book of Eli. Our dear friend Aaron Masick made us watch this shit because apparently it's a gasser, in his words.
It is.
Oh man, I'm so sorry to the Book of Eli fans and you, Trey, but that movie did not hit for me.
Mila Kunis?
Dude, Mila, I forgot she was in that. So true.
The American
my God.
Jeez, what more can you ask for in a movie?
I mean, it was definitely something. It was definitely an experience. The visual aesthetic was cool, I will admit. Like, I was like, it's not necessarily, that wasn't really my problem with it. It was just that the ending, I was like, come on, man, come on.
Little disclaimer too, I haven't seen the movie since I was probably like 11 or 12 with my father. So we used to watch all those movies on like FX and TNT all the time together.
Yep.
So I look at it with rose-colored glasses.
That's so fair. Yeah.
That movie ever again because I don't want to see it any differently.
I think that's a good idea because I think that's kind of what happened with Aaron. And after we were all like, that was kind of shitty, and he was like, "What?" Felt really bad. So sorry, Aaron. Sorry, Book of Eli fans. Was not my favorite, but I am happy to say I feel like my experience with Denzel has 100% been redeemed with this amazing lineup of films today. These 3 films that Trey has selected for us are truly incredible, and some have even made it into my top 100 list as well. So that was really exciting. So without further ado, let's jump into the first film of the day. Up first, we've got a classic Tony Scott action thriller film from 1995 called Crimson Tide. The film stars Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman, 2 of the absolute GOATs. Quite the star-studded cast, honestly. We've also got Viggo Mortensen, James Gandolfini, George Zunda, Matt Craven, and even an appearance from Steve Zahn. Which was unexpected. Denzel Washington plays Lieutenant Commander Hunter, a young first officer on a U.S. nuclear missile submarine, with Gene Hackman as his captain, Frank Ramsey. At first, the 2 of them hit it off and seemed to work together pretty well. But when the crew receives an incomplete order regarding the launch of a nuclear missile, Commander Hunter and Captain Ramsey butt heads. This initiates a very intense conflict between the 2, as Captain Ramsey wants to follow through with the orders before double-checking, while Commander Hunter wants to wait for a confirmed order. And from there, chaos erupts on the sub. So Trey and I watched this with some friends yesterday, and it was honestly so much fun. I think we all went into it like completely blind. Like, none of us had seen it, I think, or really, I at least did not know what I was getting into. But what about you, Trey? What was your initial reaction to Crimson Tide?
Oh, I thought it was, man, what a ride. My heart the entire time. It's been a while since I've seen anything like that, where I've been like locked in, but at the same time just scared about what's going to happen the entire time. I'm a huge Scott fan. Pelham, Deja Vu, Man on Fire. Him and Denzel has some gassers together already. But this is probably Tony Scott's best I've seen so far, and then Denzel's best with Tony Scott as well.
Amazing! As
our best cinephile friend knows, Will King, as he was, right? Gene Hackman at the time was probably considered one of the greatest actors of his generation, or like of all time, when this movie came out.
Right.
And him and Denzel going up against each other was honestly like you couldn't take your eyes off the screen.
Literally, yeah.
It's he just commands the screen. There's actors around him too, like with Gandolfini and Viggo.
Oh my God, yeah.
Sets himself apart, and he really makes you root for him. And also, I really appreciate him because he was the only sort of black lead in that movie. And
totally.
the ones that are happening in that movie that aren't really spoken directly, that are sort of danced around, are really interesting to watch as Denzel sort of tries to win over the hearts and minds of his ship.
Yeah. I was really interested in like the race politics and kind of discourse that came up in that film, because to be honest, like I didn't really expect that to come up in a movie like that, just because I feel like a lot of older action movies don't touch on deeper issues like that a lot of the time. I don't know. Honestly, you would have more experience with like action than I do. I'm still working up my action filmography. But and the ones that I've seen, I just thought that was really unexpected. And specifically, I guess for our listeners, for context, specifically that scene with Captain Ramsey and Hunter, where Captain Ramsey brings up like the horses.
Speaking of horses, did you ever see those Lippinzahner stallions?
What?
From Portugal. The Lippens on our stallions. Most highly trained horses in the world. They're all white.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You're aware they're all white, or yes, sir? You've seen them.
Yes, sir, I've seen them. Yes, sir, I'm aware that they're all white. They're not from Portugal, they're from Spain. And at birth, they're not white. They're black. Sir.
I didn't know that. But they are from Portugal.
It's honestly like a really uncomfortable scene in the film. I thought, at least, like, you're just like, oh shit, we're going here. Especially because right before that, Captain Ramsey has like punched the shit out of Hunter twice. And so he's like already abused him, and now that didn't work. So he's like taking it a step further, almost a little bit there. So I was really like, oh, shook by that scene. And then I also read that apparently this dialogue was added in by Tarantino when he was asked to like come help with the script.
Right.
Apparently Denzel was not happy with this. Like, he was not rocking with the language in this scene. And apparently they had like a big confrontation on set. And but obviously they kept it in. And then I guess years later, Tarantino like apologized to Denzel for the situation, and they came to an understanding on it. So I thought that just made it even more interesting as well, to hear like that on set background, if that makes sense.
That is super interesting, honestly. I mean, because the entire movie, I mean, for one, takes place on a submarine. So you can't go anywhere else. You have no choice to spend this time with them. And so you feel as much pressure as they do. Not only because they're in a nuclear missile crisis, but also because they're underwater in like this small little vessel. And I felt like it was kind of interesting that you say that about the story, how Denzel didn't like it too much, because it does sort of put to the forefront the racial tension that was sort of there in the background the entire movie. Through all like the little looks that Denzel has with the other black soldiers on the ship, or just for him only just being the only black officer on the ship by himself. Arch. That's almost enough said. And Gene really showing him the respect that he deserves, even though he has potentials. So yeah, that is a really interesting tidbit. That's crazy that it got so heated between him and Tarantino.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that, because I honestly agree with you. Like, I feel like even though I didn't expect it, when you point out those different things that happen, like different hint clues to like the dynamic in this submarine, like it makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't think it's like necessarily out of pocket for this kind of film, and like the dynamic between Denzel's character and Hackman's character. But, and then also you mentioned like them being trapped in a submarine. I loved that aspect of this film, because I think it just made it that much more intense. And it also kind of reminded me of like Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, a little bit, which aren't him and Tony Scott are brothers, right?
Yeah.
Or are they? Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a funny connection, that, because I didn't know that at first. And so when I thought of Alien, I was like, oh, that's funny that there's that connection already there. And then a part of it also just reminded me of like Star Wars a little bit, like just the way that they were like missing each other, like sneaking around each other on the same ship. I was like, this is awesome.
Great shout, honestly. That's a really nice shout. I the alien thing too, because I've never really looked at, I mean, obviously Tony and Ridley Scott are brothers, but I never looked at their filmography as being connected in any kind of way.
Yeah.
But now that I think about it, I feel like we have to do another podcast about Tony and Ridley Scott's connected filmography.
Dude, that would be awesome. I never would have thought of that, actually. Because like, yeah, like even I think on Letterboxd, I saw that someone had said, because I like had made the Alien connection, and then I literally saw on Letterboxd someone was like, oh, this would be a great double feature. So yeah, maybe you'll have to come back for the Scott brothers episode. That'll be awesome. Who was your favorite performance in this film, would you say?
I'd have to go Denzel.
Yeah.
Especially I think his first showdown with Hackman, where he sent Hackman down into his quarters when he takes the chip from him. That's awesome. And then also when you were talking about before, when he gets punched in the face twice, sort of stands his ground there. Man, shivers. I got a little horny.
Yeah, just a little bit. No, that shit was awesome.
Like, I mean, we're gonna have another 95 Denzel movie coming up that we're gonna talk about at the end, I think. But
yeah,
95 Denzel, he's like, he's at the peak. He's at like that peak of your male life. Where you're in your 40s, late 30s, 40s. You're very like strong, masculine. He's tall. He's handsome as hell, and he's
prime of his life.
Got some blood on his face.
Yeah,
like the movies. You know what I mean? Just the movie star.
He's got the it factor.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, 100%. He was everything in this. I'll admit, even having so many stars in this, he completely stole the show. I mean, obviously him and Gene were amazing together, but even to be honest, I love James Gandolfini, but what was he even there for? Dude didn't do anything in this movie. I was kind of like, what's going on?
I want to say, and I have to consult the aforementioned Will King,
yes,
he's my encyclopedia for everything.
Right.
But I want to say this is one of Gandolfini's first bigger roles.
Oh, okay.
He has The Sopranos that comes late 90s, early 2000s.
But, so true. He hadn't done Sopranos yet. That makes sense.
Which is odd to look at because after he's died and after we've watched The Sopranos already, seeing him in a sort of a very, very low supporting role behind actors who are, I got to say, just better actors than he is. As an actor.
No, yeah.
It's really odd to watch after watching him for all The Sopranos just dominate the screen.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. Because, oh my God, it was so funny when we turned this on. None of us knew who was really going to be in it besides Denzel. And James Gandolfini's name comes on in the opening credits, and we're all like, ah! So, big Sopranos fans. So that's definitely what I feel made me think. That explains so much why I was kind of underwhelmed by his performance, because we just have that in the back of our minds already.
Right.
But he did his job. He wasn't bad. It just wasn't as much as I expected.
He was no Vigo. I mean, Vigo was having a deep soul battle.
Yeah.
Tony Scott with the colors and everything on his face, the blue and the red, perfect too.
Loved that shot. Oh my God.
It's unbelievable. And he wasn't even saying anything for most of the time, just his face and his cigarette.
Yeah.
Right. I love how the 90s you do so much with cigarettes and sweat, where it's just so much.
No, I'm so glad you brought up the sweat, because honestly, that was one of the number one things I noticed in this. And everyone is just dripping with sweat. It adds so much to the tension of just one, there's so much tension between the people in the submarine. But then it also just makes you think about the pressure of being in this little pressure cooker underwater. Yeah. And the claustrophobia. And this is definitely a claustrophobic movie, I would say, in terms of no escape. And it's kind of a worst case scenario for everyone involved. Whatever decision is made, you're stuck with it. So
they got to live with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You can't go anywhere. You can't just walk out and be like, no, I don't agree with this. So it was intense.
Credit to the filmmaking and to the actors too, because making a movie that's set in literally just one place the entire time seems impossible to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Attempt it. And we don't do that much these days. Only thing I can think of right now is Room. I mean,
yeah.
We have Knives Out, I guess, a little bit, but I don't want to movie by comparing it to Knives Out. Knives Out's a banger.
But it's very different. Very different movies.
I can't think of many movies nowadays where it's just this.
One location. Yeah.
One location, these big actors, and they shouldn't go at it for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
It's so true. It does feel very nostalgic of movies from the 90s specifically. It's a great genre. I love a one location movie. They're always intense. So I was really excited to see that. I did not know that's what this movie was going to be, and loved that aspect of it so much. And yeah, the cinematography was so great too. Like, I loved how you pointed out the lighting in that scene on Vigo, like the red, the blue, and the green. It's just so much fun. And then like, I feel like being in a submarine, they got to like really play with the cinematography, like the way they'd have all the Dutch angles to show like when the submarine's making like a quick turn or something, they're literally like sideways.
Yeah.
Or like impact from an explosion, like the camera's shaking. It's so 90s, but I love it.
Remember this famous Tony Scott like close-ups that are just like really the Dutch, and it's like also close up on their faces. And
yeah, I loved those. Those were so good. It's almost like it's so intense because it literally almost is like, it's not even just like their face. It's like cutting off like his eyebrow even sometimes because it's so close, but it works. It just works so well. And Denzel has the perfect face for that as well. He's got those eyes that just like stare into your soul. Like it's so awesome.
Malcolm meet his gaze. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, this movie was so awesome. It's funny because it's not necessarily a movie I would seek out to watch, just because I don't know. It's I never really like stray towards action, I guess, in that way. And this is definitely more like thriller, I would say, which I didn't realize at first when we first watched it as well, or like first turned it on. But I'm so glad that you picked it because this was like one of the best viewing experiences. So much fun to watch it with friends. Highly recommend. Like, this would be a dope movie to see in theaters as well.
Yeah, that's super.
If any screenings are popping up, let us know because that shit would hit for sure. But yeah, any final thoughts you want to add on Crimson Tide or anything you want to talk about before we move on?
No, I would just say like we said before, I wish they made movies like this still.
Yeah, they really don't make them like this anymore, and we don't see it enough. So let us know, listeners. Let us know if you have any other recommendations like this. Let us know if you have seen a modern movie like this. I don't know if there is one out there, but if there is, we want to watch it. So let us know. And if you guys want to check out Crimson Tide, you can rent it right now on Prime. Unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere, but you can basically rent it for like $2.99 wherever you rent your films. It's definitely worth it. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Alrighty, on to the next. Up next, we have a much more recent Denzel Washington film with Joel Coen's 2021 Oscar-nominated edition of Shakespeare's iconic murderous affair, The Tragedy of Macbeth. The film garnered 3 Oscar nominations, including Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, and Best Actor for Denzel Washington. Honestly, it should have won all 3, and I would also add that Frances McDormand was snubbed a Best Actress nom.
Yes.
She popped off in this. But anyways, the cast is honestly so stacked with like some of the greatest actors of all time. Denzel Washington just absolutely slays, literally and figuratively, as the titular role of Macbeth. Frances McDormand as his Lady Macbeth is an equally dominant force in the film. She just captivates and commands the screen. And the great Brendan Gleeson gives a fantastic, albeit brief, performance as the slain King Duncan. But aside from those big names in film, this movie is also packed with so many extraordinary stage performers who are just like born to play these roles, and a handful of other actors that I personally adore. We've got a whole Harry Potter trio here, I have to add. Mad-Eye, Dudley, and Mrs. Big. I was like, oh hell yeah, let's go. We just did our Harry Potter episode, so I'm riding the high of it.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
It was so funny. I was like, damn, that's kind of insane. I haven't seen Harry Melling, who plays Dudley in the Harry Potter series. He plays the late King's son, Malcolm, in this. I haven't seen him in a lot of stuff except for Harry Potter, and he did I think like The Devil All the Time. I think he was in that with Robert Pattinson and whatever else. I don't know, I can't remember. But I thought he was great in this. And then, of course, we have the bewitching Catherine Hunter as the witches. Literally so obsessed with her. She's easily one of my favorite actors. Like, I think still so wildly underrated. She's crazy. And no one else could have done what she did in this film. And then finally, I have to highlight Alex Hassel's performance and Corey Hawkins' portrayal of Macduff. Hawkins brought his A game and just gave such a convincing performance of true grief. Like, I literally felt my heart break into 1,000 pieces watching him, but we'll get into more of that later. So really quickly, for those who don't know the tale of Macbeth, I'll just give a brief synopsis. Basically, Macbeth, the Thane of Glamis, receives a prophecy from 3 witches foretelling that he will one day become the King of Scotland. Drunk off ambition and spurred into action by his cunning wife, Macbeth murders his king and seizes the throne. Unfortunately for the Macbeths, amidst all their plotting and murder sprees, they never really gave thought to the massive toll that guilt would take as it gradually rots their minds and consumes their sanity entirely. Really quick, my initial thoughts. This movie fucking rocks. Like, this this is easily one of my top 5 favorite first time watches this year. The visuals are breathtaking. The performances are on another level. I was a little bit nervous I wouldn't be able to follow the language because I wasn't too familiar with the story of Macbeth, but between Joel Coen's screenplay and every actor's performance, it was actually much easier to follow than I expected. Granted, I 100% had subtitles turned on, but still, just saying to not be swayed away from this film because of the Shakespeare language. But anyways, I'm getting a little carried away because I love this film so much. But Trey, I wanted to pass it over to you to hear your thoughts. And also, I'm curious, like, did you ever get to read Macbeth? I never read it, so I was curious if you had, like, background with that as an English major in school.
I'm a
You're like,
I'm a big English nerd. I was English was my favorite subject in high school, so we read Macbeth in high school.
Oh,
And
nice.
obviously, I had to take a Shakespeare class when I was in college, and I have this big Shakespeare book, as thick as a Bible,
No
of
way.
all plays and everything, which is I would honestly recommend anyone getting because it's so is
No,
everything.
that sounds awesome. Yeah.
But I think if the way I would describe this movie, and I kind of agree with you with what you're saying, where it's the easiest, probably most digestible Shakespeare there is in Shakespeare's language.
Mhm.
Denzel, not only Denzel, but also McDormand and Catherine Hunter and Corey Hawkins, all those people, they, like, if you were going to teach high school students Macbeth ever, or even college students Macbeth, this is probably the best way to do it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
This is like the clearest I've understood Macbeth. Watching it, and I've had to read it so many different times for school,
Right.
and just outside of school too. Denzel's performance as Macbeth is sort of, like I said, the clearest I've ever understood him as a character. Not only his words, but like his face, his rage, his subtleties, and McDormand's too are just they're
Yes.
unbelievable. Yeah. So when I first watched it in 2021, I was honestly amazed at how much I did actually like it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I like Shakespeare, but obviously, like, because it was an English major, whatever. But
Yeah.
I say I love just like reading and watching Shakespeare on my own free time. But
Right.
it was like,
It was
even
more
though
for
Shakespeare
school.
can be, yeah, it's more controlled, and it was honestly super well done, especially by Joel Coen. It was super engaging, and it felt like a play, honestly, to watch on screen.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that was like what really sets the film apart for me from, like, because there's, like, I looked it up on Letterboxd, there's like thousands of Macbeth movies. Like, it's actually insane. This has been done. This is not like an original thing, to be honest. Everyone has tried to recreate Shakespeare for the screen. But, like, just the imagery, and I loved how the cinematography, the production design, and the lighting are, like, all at one with each other. Like, they all have this artistic relationship that's kind of dependent on the other in achieving the overall look or aesthetic of the film. Like, how the light shines through the set's architecture to cast these specific shapes and shadows within the frame, or on the actors, and then where the camera is placed to capture the actors is all equally important and constantly at play with each other from beginning to end. And like, yeah, I think the set design is really what really brilliantly pays tribute to the theatrical aspect of Macbeth, making it like the perfect stage to screen adaptation. Like in every scene, the set design is integrated in a way that kind of pays tribute to like a stage play, like a set on stage. But then the cinematography and the brilliant transitions. Oh my God, the transitions in this movie.
The fades feel like they're like curtains.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God, I love that. And like that can really only be executed through cinema with like cinematography and editing. So there were two specific scenes that really stood out to me as an example of this. The first being that scene early in the film where Lady Macbeth throws a letter out into the wind and it's like floating out into the starry night sky, which is intentionally, it's like a very obvious fake backdrop. Like it's very stylized rather than realistic. And then the letter disappears and we're just staring at the starry night sky. And then the camera pans down without cutting to like an entirely new set and location. It's just such a seamless transition that I loved. And then the one that really blew my mind was this shot where Ross, who I think is like the priesthood kind of character, he like looks up at the moon and we see the moon slowly covered completely by clouds. And then the moon comes back suddenly as if it was like turned on by like a light. But then a man walks into the frame and you realize it's a spotlight and it's almost like an illusion that like tricks your eyes. Like it's just, the transitions just like really set this film apart from others for me. Cause yeah, I think it was just like a beautiful tribute to the play while also highlighting the power of film by showing this like relationship between theater and cinema, if that makes any sense at all.
8%. Yeah, no, I feel the exact same way, honestly. And there's the scene where after Macbeth kills King Duncan, and Lady Macbeth falls asleep, and then it's out on her face, and she wakes up like almost in sheer terror at what they've done. It's unbelievable. And I felt like
good.
That was like kind of like an act break. Because if I remember correctly, I could be completely wrong here, but I think after he kills McDuncan, that's the act.
That's it. Yeah.
But that felt to me like in the movie. Maybe I could just say that because the movie made me feel that way, but it was like that's an act,
yeah.
New act. But that was honestly really awesome.
Oh, that's so cool. I actually didn't even think about those transitions as literal end act points in the play. Oh my God, that's so cool. He just did that so well in this film, and like, yeah, it's just, I had to shout that out because I think for me, the visual aesthetics was just like such a big part of why I loved this movie. I feel like there were two big movies that inspired it. The first one is Bergman's The Seventh Seal. The visual style of that is just so like the black and white imagery, and like, you know, those films do have two similar themes as well. Like they have similar themes like death and dread and guilt. And specifically like the intro scene reminded me a lot of it when Macbeth and Banquo come upon like the witch, and we see her dark cloaked figure set against like a misty backdrop, and she's standing in front of a pool of water, and we see she has two reflections in the water, so she appears as three, which first of all was such a cool way to like visualize the three witches in the story. But that scene like really specifically reminded me of the imagery in The Seventh Seal. And then the second film inspiration would be like the cabinet of Dr. Caligari with the geometric architecture and like really intense shadows. There's one obvious scene for me for this that had kind of like the German expressionism aesthetic, or reminded me of that movie, is like that shot where Macbeth is walking. Oh my God, and Denzel, this is such a great scene for him and like his monologue as well. He's walking down the long hallway to murder the king, and he's giving a monologue about how his eyes are deceiving him, and it looks like there's like a shining silver dagger just hovering in midair at the end of the hallway, and it's as if he's being called to like commit this murder. But as we get closer, we realize it's just the door handle of the king's room, and like it's just this like illusion and like surreal aspects of this that I loved so much, because Macbeth does have a lot of like magic and fantasy in it. So I just loved that aspect of this film and had to shout it out because I'm so upset I missed it in theaters. Honestly, like this would have been such a spectacle, but maybe it's for the best because I low-key needed subtitles at the same time. Did you see this one in theaters? You did, right?
No, I didn't. I
Oh.
want to say it was we watched it at the back end of COVID,
Oh, it maybe even wasn't in theaters then.
but we watched in Cochrane's room, like at the couch, like a Sunday morning.
Oh, love it. Lovely. Yeah.
You just dropped so much knowledge there about, I need to watch both those movies because that was the best. That was awesome what you just did right there. That was sick.
Thanks. Well, the funny thing is, I'll admit, I actually haven't watched those movies, but I have like read about them in school and stuff. And like, I don't know, I'm a movie nerd where I just like look on Letterboxd all the time and I'm like, ooh, adding all these things to my watch list. And if you look up The Seventh Seal, there's like this one image that just reminded me so much of that first scene with Catherine Hunter's character. Or is that her name? Yeah. Oh my God. And her intro was crazy as well. And she's like bending her limbs all around her. I was just like, oh, this is about to be
shoulder picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was scary as hell.
I was like, oh, this movie is about to fuck me up. And I'm so excited. But yeah, it just stylistically, I loved this movie. I loved all the like visual motifs. And even that one where like an audio kind of motif was the knocking that Macbeth hears. And I'm like, maybe you can speak more to that, having like read Macbeth. Is that like in the play? Like he just hears knocking, and it's because in the movie it's depicted as like the sound, it's like the blood from the king dripping onto the floor, and it's like this big tap each time that turns into like this knocking that's haunting him and Lady Macbeth. But I was curious if you knew more about that in like the play.
I think in the play it's just like a knock, 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 knock. So like it's a sound, kind of like it is in the movie where it's a constant sound reminding Macbeth.
Yeah.
What they've done.
Okay, cool.
I've seen in certain adaptations of it where this is a lot different, but it's just different, or it's just depends on how the adaptation is for different of the story. Because like sometimes the spot on her hand is there, sometimes it's not there. So she's rubbing the damn spot and the blood on her hand. She's like, sometimes it is there, sometimes it's not. So it really depends on, I guess, who's doing the adaptation.
That's cool. Yeah, that was another scene. Yeah, that was really interesting. I mean, one of my favorites as well. Frances McDormand just popping off as an absolute mad woman in that scene.
I was nominated for this.
It's crazy. Like that scene alone deserves a nomination. The look in her eyes when she like looks at the servants and she's like, "Go to bed" or some shit. I was like, I literally got chills. I was like, oh my God, this woman is terrifying. It's so good.
I think that's what the Oscars usually love to like. They love to horn out over. It's
I know, it's Shakespeare.
It's one of their classic nominated actors, Frances McDormand, doing Shakespeare.
Right? Come on. But yeah, Denzel in this movie, like I feel like this performance, this is like, I don't know. I obviously am still diving into his filmography, but I feel like this is a career-defining performance in that he's just continuously proving time and time again that he can literally do it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could give him anything and he will transform it into something that is so captivating and inspiring and profound. And like, I was eating it up the whole time. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible to see him do things not only like this, but also like just like The Equalizer.
And yeah.
Equalizer, or like Two Guns or something like that, and just do this. He just has, like you said, he has it all in his bag. And his bag is just the deepest bag there is out there.
Yeah, I love that. No, literally, it's just amazing to watch. And then also I just have to shout out Corey Hawkins' performance because I know I talked about it a little bit, but there's just this one scene that absolutely sold me and broke me in this film. And it's when Ross goes to tell Macduff that his wife and children have all been murdered by Macbeth. And like, he just has the most heartbreaking, visceral reaction to the pain of these words. Like, they're literally like daggers. And then he delivers one of the most gut punching and memorable lines in the film. Harry Melling's character, Malcolm, is like, dispute it like a man. And Macduff says, I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. And it's just like, oh, just breaks my heart every single time. And it's also just like not a line I expected to hear in like Shakespeare, I guess, because I was like, oh, that's like really deep. And you don't see men expressing their emotions like that a lot of the time in these older pieces of work. So I just thought that was such a profound moment. And then it just gets you so excited for like his fight scene with Denzel at the end, which was so awesome. Oh my God.
Denzel as well. I mean, some of the things he's doing in that movie, like physically too, are just ridiculous. That one scene where he's like all the way crazy. Like, so he's done. He's all the way crazy.
He's lost it.
That one guy is in his castle trying to kill him. And he like spits like some sand or some shit in his face.
Yeah, he flicks blood in his face.
Blood in his face, pulls his shit out of his pocket, stabs him in the back, and just walks away.
Dude, Denzel is a beast in this movie. Like, physically, he's just like so strong and powerful. You're so right. I'm so glad you mentioned that scene because I wanted to talk about it. Because it literally, when he pushes the guy, and the dude goes flying and his sword goes flying from just one shove. I literally laughed out loud, like in a good way, because I was like, no way. It's so awesome. I loved that scene. He just absolutely killed it. I can totally see why he got the Oscar nom and like deserves so much more, because his descent into madness is just mesmerizing. That's the word. Like, you just can't stop watching it. And yeah, he does so many little things with his face and like his delivery of the lines. I mean, come on. I don't think anyone could have done a better job at playing Macbeth than him. So
certainly a legendary performance.
Yeah. It was so awesome. Yeah. Any final thoughts on Macbeth or the tragedy of Macbeth before we move on?
No, you cooked. That was sick.
I was really excited to talk about this one.
That was just being able to listen to you do that was so
No, this one was a lot of fun. I'm glad we picked it too, because it's been on my watch list for a long time, and I think it'd be fun to just watch all of Denzel's Oscar nominated performances as well at some point. So I'm happy to have ticked this one off my list. But for our listeners, you can stream The Tragedy of Macbeth on Apple TV Plus for free right now if you have that. And then other than that, I think you may have to rent it on Amazon or somewhere. But if this sounds interesting to you, I think it's definitely worth the watch. It's really cool. If you love like cinematography, you love Denzel, you like Shakespeare, definitely check this out. It's a good time.
Yeah, if you're like a substitute teacher or something who needs to show their class Macbeth, or if you're a teacher who wants to show their class Macbeth, this is probably the best way to do it, I'd say.
So true. Yeah. Alrighty, we're going to take a quick break. And during that break, you guys are going to hear from Gimme Three producer and LA Diversity Film Festival director Sonia Maru for another amazing edition of Sonia's Movie Minute. So stay tuned and we'll be back in just a minute.
Hello, I'm Sonia, and this is my Movie Minute. The first Denzel Washington performance I ever saw was his portrayal of Steve Biko in the 1987 film Cry of Freedom by Richard Attenborough. Of course, nowadays, Denzel is synonymous with brilliant portrayals of real men. Malcolm X, Reuben Hurricane Carter, Coach Boone in Remember the Titans, Frank Lucas in American Gangster, Silas Tripp in Glory, and I'm sure there are many others I'm forgetting. But his incredible performance as Steve Biko was his first time starring as a real person and his first Oscar nomination. If you aren't familiar with Steve Biko, he was one of the leaders of the Black consciousness movement against apartheid in South Africa. I kind of think of him and Nelson Mandela like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, or Peter Tosh and Bob Marley. Sadly, all those men are dead now, and 4 of them were murdered for their beliefs and activism. In the late 80s, my dad was one of the organizers of the Biko Lives Festival in the South Bronx. It was a music festival and political gathering meant to celebrate the life and work of Steve Biko and to organize activism against racism, oppression, and violence in South Africa and in New York. It was a really incredible event filled with great music and great people. Cry Freedom tells the story of a white Afrikaner journalist named Donald Woods, played brilliantly by Kevin Kline, whose entire understanding of society and humanity changes when he starts writing about Steve Biko and becomes his friend. Donald's writing played an important role in sharing Biko's life and message with the world, as well as illuminating the day-to-day life of Blacks under apartheid. My only criticism of the film is that it is more Donald Woods' story than Biko's. But I guess Donald is the one who lived to tell the tale, after all. And even with that being said, it's a really fantastic film, and I highly, highly recommend checking it out. One of the things that blows me away about Denzel's career is how ever since the beginning, it seems like he's been really discerning with the roles that he's played and the people he's worked with. That couldn't have been easy, especially in the early days when he didn't have the clout that he has now. I hope and assume that he'll continue to make thought-provoking and moving films for many, many, many years to come. Though, Denzel, if you're listening, I also wouldn't mind if you threw in a screwball comedy one day, just to say that you can do that too.
Welcome back to the Gimme Three Podcast, everyone. Today we're talking 3 bangin' Denzel Washington films. So far, we've talked about Denzel's incredible performance in Tony Scott's 90s thriller Crimson Tide, and Denzel's shining Oscar-nominated performance in Joel Coen's The Tragedy of Macbeth. And now, Trey is going to introduce our 3rd and final film of the day. Take it away, Trey.
So this one is, I'm really excited to talk about this one. This is definitely a new dress. It comes out in 95, same year as Crimson Tide, I believe. Big year for Denzel. Directed by Carl Franklin. This is probably Denzel at his best, in my opinion. He plays 1940s private eye Easy Rawlins, who is a former vet who fought in Europe, who gets a little bit in over his head looking for a missing woman and the girlfriend of a mayoral candidate of Los Angeles. Like I said before, this is Denzel at his absolute best, his coolest. Every man wants to be him. Everyone wants to sleep with him. In some of my research for this movie, I realized that it had a $27 million budget.
What?
Which is insane. That's so cheap, especially today.
That's insane. This seems like so much more because it's like a period piece.
Yeah, 1940s period piece. And I realized also that Deadpool and Wolverine, because I watched it yesterday, has $2 million budget. And that movie wasn't even half of what this is.
Wow.
And all the sequels getting made today for like all the gazillions of dollars, the 3 Deadpools, the 4 different Captain Americas, whatever. There should have been like 5 or 6 different Easy Rollins and Mouse with Denzel.
Say it louder for the people in the back. God damn it.
It's a crime that he didn't get to do this character a couple of times. And you told me yesterday about the different books that they had. And then I really want to read those, honestly. We talked about it yesterday. I want to read those books. I just wish they'd make more. It's too bad
he's so awesome
now because he's a little bit older. But he should play this character as many times as Ryan Reynolds got to play Deadpool.
Seriously.
I feel like Gen Z yearns for tight noirs.
Yep.
You don't get them.
Yeah.
And one thing special about this one, especially, is that it feels like Chinatown. And I will say, like, Denzel, no disrespect to Jack Nicholson or Cary Grant or any of those classic sort of Hollywood with these noirs before him, but this is almost fresher. It's almost greener. He has as much charisma as Nicholson did, or Grant, those classic guys. Chinatown is probably a little superior to Devil in a Blue Dress. Just got a soft spot in my heart for sure. The racial aspect of it in a segregated Los Angeles, this private black guy looking for this white woman, is super interesting,
So intense.
super, super intense.
Makes it a thriller almost. Like my
Yeah.
heart was racing watching this shit.
It's unreal how serious it gets. And that one in itself is a subversion of the noir genre, just having it centered around Black people, Black actors, Black characters too. And then also Cheadle pretty much comes in and throws the movie on its entire head with his mouse. That, because you're like, first, what is it, like 45 minutes to an hour? You're like, this is just a regular
Yeah.
that I'm watching. And then and then everything's thrown apart.
Everything is different. He brings so much humor to something that's so intense.
Yeah.
And I just love like having that little humorous bone throughout the film. And like he's everything. I fucking love Don Cheadle. I have to admit, he's one of my all-time favorites. When he popped up as Mouse, my jaw was on the floor. I knew he was in the film, but I was not expecting him to play Mouse. And man, brilliant casting. Honestly, he killed it.
Unbelievable. And I watched this movie obviously after I've seen like, Avengers, after I've seen Ocean's movies. And I just didn't know Cheadle had this in his bag, to be honest. Like, this is just,
I wish he had more like this, to be honest, because he's made for this type of role. Like, he knows how to just completely embody this character.
Right.
Like, it was just such a believable performance. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that.
and I just wish Denzel had more of these too. And like we talked about last night too with Will and Gabby, it was like, he's done so many Equalizers. He's done so many of these action movies, like Gladiator 2 coming out soon, which is super exciting. But like just this sort of like really small, sort of like detective story.
Yeah.
Not something you really see from him again. And it's amazing. It's fantastic. He just eats it up because it depends on his one, charisma, 2, how he looks,
Yep.
and 3, his delivery. Because you're just following him the entire time. And just everything he says, everything he does is perfect.
Oh my God, I couldn't agree more. He's so captivating in this. And like, I was really blown away by this film as well. Like, I went into it completely blind. I didn't know what I was getting into. At first, my not so humble ass thought this was going to be like a very predictable and kind of outdated mystery, and that like I'd already figured everything out. And when I got so much more than that, I was just like, I was blown away. I couldn't believe how quickly it sucked me into the plot and then just took me on the most exhilarating, thrilling mystery with some like high suspense, like crazy action sequences as well. That end shootout is insane. And then having like these hilarious quips and like characters throughout it. It's one of those movies where it just has a little bit of everything in it, but it works perfectly as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I think the action too, it's very surprising.
Yeah.
Like all of it comes out of nowhere, it seems.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, granted, like at first I was kind of like, oh, this is a little John Wick vibes. Like how is he in all this action? But then I forgot he does have like a veteran background. So it's like, okay, he's not unfamiliar to like guns and action and that type of vibe, but it does creep up on you. Like you don't expect it to go as crazy as it does.
Yeah. The fact that he was a veteran, I think this movie, does a great job touching on something that I think is rarely talked about in American history. Probably now it's a little more spoken about. But for sure at the time, sort of like this 1940s character who has served in Europe, but also has nothing. So he's one of the heroes of the war who's come back and can't afford his mortgage. So now he has to deal with these seedy people like Tom Sizemore, who's fantastic. Who was also in Heat, came out this year.
Oh, no way.
5 Sizemore's in Heat. So this is a big year for these guys. But Sizemore plays this really seedy individual. They sit in Zell to get him to work for him. And I remember that scene where they broke into his house. And I think it really breaks down like sort of like the racial aspect of this movie. Because him and those white henchmen and one Asian henchman, the guy's like, so you served in Europe? And then like a second pulls out a gun and a knife. It's at Denzel's throat. So it's sort of like, this is the reality that these veterans have come back to, especially the black have come back to. It's almost like they've done nothing for the country. at all.
Yeah.
People treat him like that.
Completely cast aside.
So yeah, that aspect of the noir as well is was very interesting to me because you don't see the racial aspects of it in most noirs either.
Yeah, no, this is like, I'm so glad you brought that up because that was something I was so excited to talk about with this as like, I guess, as like a neo-noir kind of film. It really sets itself apart from others. And I loved how you talked about how, because like, yeah, I was reading about how the genre of film noir really does kind of like discount itself in a way, or like is kind of wrong in the sense that so many of those characters from the older films, yes, they're all like morally ambiguous and kind of like nihilistic about the world, like dog eat dog world, that type of thing, but they're all white men and they never ever and so it almost just like perpetuates that like white supremacy dynamic of like they really only talk about class differences in those older films, whereas like racism at that time was crazy and like that was another issue. So it's like those film noir films were so groundbreaking because they were like pulling back the curtain to be like, okay, the American dream is kind of a farce and like here's what's really going on in this supposedly amazing country. But then they never got to like any other issues that are actually happening. And so yeah, having a Black man as our lead and Denzel, like a perspective that's historically been lost or ignored in this genre, was so powerful. And even like visually, the aesthetic took me by surprise a lot for like neo-noir, because I feel like historically like noir was more like dark, grimy, urban like setting, kind of gritty setting. And Easy's neighborhood and his house is like gorgeous and it has these beautiful earth tones and it's very like cozy and comfortable, like a sacred safe space. So I thought that was really interesting as well. And then like when it does kind of do the more like high contrast, dark shadows, scary stuff is when he finds himself in like those really intense, uncomfortable situations, like driving Daphne in an all white neighborhood at night and like the Malibu Pier incident and all that stuff. So I thought that was really fucking cool in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And like ultimately racism is like the key to the mystery of this film, which also really took me aback.
Right. Yeah. Finding out, I guess we don't want to spoil it for Jim was never seen it before, but yeah, finding out at the end of the movie is, I guess, the key. And race is the central aspect of it all. And like you said about the American dream too, it's super interesting that, you know, like you said, the Black American dream is something that's lost to time almost, especially in the history of cinema. Seeing a character struggle for his own American dream who is Black, like almost a breath of fresh air. And seeing it in Denzel's eyes is probably the perfect person to cast it through.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he absolutely killed it. He embodied everything. And like something I noticed in all of these films too with Denzel's acting style is like he almost doesn't even have to like say anything to get his point across. Like it's all in his face and his eyes, and the way he carries himself speaks volumes about like what he's going through, what he's thinking, all this stuff. And that is just so impressive to me every single time.
Yeah, like we were talking about Crimson Tide when he takes those punches from Hackman's character. Just those scenes where when he gets beat up by the police and he's holding that thing to his head, or he's having a bad dream, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But when he walks and watching the guy's dead, it's just his face, his body, his physicalness. He's giving off so much. It's one of the things that makes him one of my favorite actors is his prowess and his facial recognition, but also some things that I just recognize from him time and time again. Sort of his cadences that are always sort of familiar, and the way that he speaks is just always so commanding. You can't help but look at him on the screen. And it's something that De Niro does as well. De Niro, I think, him and Denzel both have certain cadences that they always stick to, but no matter the character, those cadences are the same, but they just draw you in so hard.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good point. And it's so true. You can see it in all of these films, and especially this one. Like, I feel like when he does talk in this, it's always like with power and intention, and like he gets his point across and he carries himself just in such an amazing way. But then he also doesn't talk all that. Like a lot of it is action in this, which is really cool to watch. If just like you're just following this dude. And they even like set that up with like the style of the way the story's told. It kind of reminded me of like The Great Gatsby a little bit, where it's like that voiceover narration and he's like telling his life story and recounting it, and you're just like almost like a fly on the wall, just like following him around through all these different scenes and instances. I loved the storytelling and like visual style of this film as well. It was just beautiful. Every scene is gorgeous.
Absolutely cool. Yeah, just the way it's lit, the shadows. I hate to keep harkening back on this point, but you just don't see him like this anymore. Like it just
no, it's true.
It's unbelievable.
It's so true.
And I can't think of many actors that I would want to see do this either right now.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Not a ton of young actors who I would just be interested in, like
Timothée Chalamet.
No disrespect to the Shallow God, but yeah, I just don't know if his bag's deep enough for me to just watch him do stuff like this for the entire, like Nicholson, like I said before, Nicholson, Bogarts, Grant, Denzel.
Right.
Denzel's got.
We don't really have one of our generation yet.
It's a little sad.
That is sad.
But they're also not getting the roles. They're not getting the scripts anymore that are like take on. So
it's true. It's so true. Yeah, we can only hope. Hopefully producers are listening to this. They can make it happen.
They should listen to us. Yeah. We know. So we know ball.
We know what the public wants.
That's what I'm saying. I don't mean to get too riled up.
No, let's get riled up.
I just we're not. I mean, our generation has been boiled down to like the 3 screens. Like we need like Family Guy playing and a game and then a movie on top. I was just sitting there watching Deadpool and Wolverine. I was like, is it seriously what they're doing with these two guys?
Oh,
like I was just, it's just,
So like secondhand embarrassment almost of just like
you spent $200 million doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and there's some good performances in the movie. I'm not going to lie. Hugh Jackman's great. Channing Tatum's great. It's great to see it again. All these classics. I mean, but like, have you really just boiled it down to just like baseless cameos from bad movies?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. And you know, even like that's what was so powerful about oh god, I'm blanking on his name, Cord, who did American Fiction.
Right. Cord.
Yeah, his speech at the Oscars, he was like, you could make 3 movies with the price of the one that we're making these days. And it's so fucking true. Like we got to stop wasting all this money, man. We got to stop. It's getting out of hand. Nobody cares about these movies. And like, yeah, like I couldn't agree more with you that like these kind of movies just aren't, you don't see them as much today. And even just like, I mean, obviously spoilers for anyone listening, but just that final scene, like the fact that we got a happy ending at the end of this was very surprising to me. It's literally the most like, especially because like noir films are typically very nihilistic and like kind of depressing. But the end of this movie is like, I guess it's a little bit of both because you're just like, he can't go back to where he was before all this. Like he is irrevocably changed and his future is irrevocably changed. But at the same time, he's just smiling in his neighborhood and admiring it, like admiring the life that he has. And like, it's just such a beautiful moment. The score is going off. Oh my God, the score is so good in this film. And I mean, maybe I've just been watching a lot of depressing shit lately, but I was like, I haven't seen something like this in a really long time. So I love that aspect of it.
I mean, it's the first shot, I think, is like his house. And so is the last shot, almost like his house. So it's like, that's what he's pretty much doing all this for.
Yeah.
Any of this mess, if he's even behind on his mortgage for 2 months. And so that's the happiest part about it all. Like you said, he finally just gets to be where he wants to be.
Yeah, and I love his, that makes me think of like his attitude through all this. I love how he's just like, I don't really give a fuck about anything anymore. Like, I just don't want to be dealing with this. Like when he goes to the mayor's office, who's like trying to track down this girlfriend, and he's like talking to that guy, and he's basically just like, get the fuck out of my way. And then the guy's kind of like, whoa. It's It's like so true though. Like this
Yeah.
dude just doesn't want to be dealing with this. Like he's like, I'm just gonna get to the source. But then he keeps getting like pulled back in because they're offering him these obscene amounts of money, which no one in their right mind would turn down at this point in time. And so I just loved that like constant evolution throughout this film, and Denzel's performance of it. Like he was just born to play this role.
Yeah. I mean, just this is like true leading man stuff too.
Yeah.
Like he's in just about every single scene of this movie.
Mhm.
And the entire time, it's not like he's like cracking jokes and shit. Like,
No, yeah.
Like he's like, you're looking at him this entire movie and he is carrying you through it. And I hate putting too much back on the Marvel thing and honestly, I'm kind of a dumbass for this because I paid to watch the movie. I think Will said yes. Will was like, we are
contributing to this. Yeah.
Anyways, but it's like this movie has so many character actors in it, like Sizemore and Cheadle. They part role in this movie, but they're great actors. They're great at doing it. Like kind of like the best Hoffman parts were like character acting parts. You know, you think of your the Ripley parts that he's done. You even mentioned villain, fantastic. But when I'm watching Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm like, so the side characters are just like really famous people now. Like so it's like it's 7 lead actors, it's 7 top billed actors. There's people who just want to play the character, who just want to be,
and you only see them for 2 minutes,
for 2.5, 3 minutes. Yeah, I hate to talk too much shit about it because it's not what.
I fully agree with you. This is the place to do it, honestly. Like it's a safe space for that type of belief system, because honestly, I couldn't agree more. I'm so sick of all this Marvel sequel shit, and like that's why this has just been the best. Like I love these movies so much because they're not movies that we get today. And honestly, like I'm out to lunch, your favorite saying. But I didn't even know about Devil in a Blue Dress, and I'm like pissed about that because I'm like, this should be something that everybody should watch at some point in their lives. This should be on like, I mean, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's in the Criterion Collection. I'm sure it's on like the New York Times 1000 movies to watch in your lifetime. If not, it fucking better be, because oh my God, this movie was so good.
Yeah, a lot of these movies are sort of lost to time now. Like I feel like you have to sort of go searching for them. Like although it is Criterion, and although it is available like on Letterboxd to look up, you have to sort of look for these movies to find them. And you have to like sort of search through Denzel's filmography like kind of deeply to find this. Once you make it past 3 Equalizers, once you make it past Man on Fire, which are great movies, you finally get back to these, like this, Ricochet, like just crazy 90s movies that have been lost to time. And like I said earlier, Gen Z yearns for the 90s type movie.
100%.
45. That's what we want. I really don't know many of our friends. Maybe we're just like a select group of people, but we're not special anything. So there's many people out there who are like, yeah, I don't want to just watch this random bullshit. Like, I want more Crimson Tides. I want more Devil in Blue Dresses.
I feel like that's also the rhetoric like on social media. Like people are not, maybe you're right. Maybe there are people who are just like, I'm so excited for Deadpool, Wolverine, whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I watched the fucking movie, so I can't talk too much.
Because we're cinephiles. We're going to watch it.
You gotta go to the theater and watch the movie.
Gotta have seen it.
Like
you can't not be part of the moment.
Exactly. Gotta be part of the moment. I gotta support something.
Gotta support I love it. Yeah, hopefully we can get a movie like this again. I don't know.
Be stylistic like this movie is. Like this movie has like a certain like really distinct style. And sets are certainly really distinct as well. But I would say, this movie stands alone just in the fact that it tells a story that is not only just completely tight, like lots of bullshit and fluff, but when it does really ramp it up, it's needed. Like the Don scenes really take things to another level. It doesn't necessarily take over the movie. Those scenes hard
Oh,
to
yeah.
those scenes. They really work. And they help Denzel too. And Denzel is great in those scenes. He's still working with Cheeto really, really well.
Oh my God. Like that scene when he wakes up Mouse from his like bourbon sleep. And he pulls a gun out on him.
Boy, is you crazy or is you drunk? Come on.
Am I drunk? You saw me draw that gun in a minute. Check this gun out drunk me.
Just put the gun down.
No, I'm drunk. No, I'm drunk. You right? Go put that gun right there. You're gonna see who's drunk. Oh, watch it now. Watch it. God damn it. Right there now. Oh, yeah. Now this fool gonna call me out. He ain't even got no gun. I'll kill that motherfucker.
No. Let him go. Let him live. And he'll be scared of you every time you walk into a room.
Shit, he better be scared. Goddamn it, I'll kill him.
He will, and if he ain't out,
You better tell him.
I will. Trust me. I'll tell him.
Right there, goddamn.
No, keep an eye on him.
Where you going?
Yeah, like it's just such good kind of like almost slapstick, but it just works so well for like the era and the characters. And like, yeah, those two had such great chemistry on screen. And I love that you said that they didn't really like steal screen time from the other or like value from the other. Like they both supported each other in a way that just worked so well together. I don't know how like the best way to describe it, but it just worked for me. And even like I really liked oh man, I can't think of the actor, the guy who played Joppy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was great as well. And that scene when Denzel comes in smashing his marble with the hammer is so good.
Vouch for Joppy's little bar. He was just trying to do a good thing for himself.
Oh, I know, and then oh man, yeah, just so much happens, and like oh man, the character work was just so good. I read that they in the first screenplay, I guess producers had asked Carl Franklin to combine Mouse and Easy's character, which is like no offense, the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That just doesn't make sense. And he was like, no, doesn't make any sense. That's not going to work.
Doesn't work at all.
And then when they like saw the product with like the final version with Don Cheadle, they were like, oh my God, you're right. So thank God for that. Thank God he stood his ground, because you needed like, I don't think that would have worked for the character to like have, because he's not a violent person. He can take himself there if he has to, but that's not who he is as a character. And like his identity is really just, he's a very pure of heart person who finds himself having to, like, he's like basically forced to do what he has to do in this film. He doesn't have the option to be like, that's what also makes him really interesting as like a noir, morally ambiguous character, if you will, because it really questions that of like, is he really that morally ambiguous, or is he just not given any other options? You know what I mean?
He's fighting for his life. Yeah.
He's fighting for his life. Yeah. And so, it just makes for such a good thriller and detective movie. Like, oh my God, I loved the mystery. What's her name? The girl who plays Daphne. I'm blanking. Jennifer Beals. She was so great. I loved the like femme fatale with the twist.
You think she's a good actor?
I don't know. I mean, I almost feel like she was an interesting character in that we didn't really see. I feel like I couldn't decide if it was her acting style or if it was just her character, because she didn't really like give anything. Yeah. But a part of me felt like that was more just like her character has been so protective of her identity and like showing her true self that she's almost just like a persona of like who she really is, if that makes sense. Like she's almost just like a different person. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I feel like we just didn't really ever get to see who she really is until, I guess, like spoilers, the end. But even then we see it through like Easy's eyes. Like he's just observing her conversation with her ex. And so we never really see like the emotional, like the way that she really is when she's in love with this person, if that makes any sense.
Right.
But, so I don't know. That's a hard question because it makes me not want to like write her off too soon, but at the same time, she wasn't giving. You know what I mean? That much.
It's tough.
I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Yeah, it's tough in that movie, surrounded by all the greatness that she was surrounded by.
That too. Yeah.
But I do agree with you. She wasn't really giving us much.
That's the consensus. Of reveals. Sorry.
I don't know if that's harsh or if you felt the same way. So I'm glad we're on the same page there, honestly.
Yeah, no, like that was also what made this really interesting is I feel like usually the like femme fatale character is such a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was really cool that she played a massive part in the mystery. Like she was kind of like the inciting incident, I guess, in a way, but it didn't take anything from Denzel's character, which I thought was really smart and really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this movie is just built different, honestly. Like it's such a cool version of its genre. And oh my god, and the character Dua Albright, I feel like we have to talk about him because he's so scary in this, but also really funny. Like that's something I always love in these like type of movies is where like the villain is almost surrounded by like idiots. I love that trope. Like that scene when they do break into his house and he's like he keeps sucking on his teeth and you're just like, oh, what is this, just like maybe a tick that this character has? And then he says this bologna is stuck in my molar. And then one of his goons is like, I get that with popcorn. Shut the fuck up. Like
yeah, Sizemore is he's always like, I don't know, it's like he thinks the movie's about him, like all these little ticks and stuff, and it's like this movie's actually not about you,
right?
It really adds a lot because it's like this guy thinks the movie's about him. So
that's such a good point. Yeah,
it makes like you're so good.
Which like yeah, it works so well with his character because he's so like caught up in his own like plot and what is going on with his world, whereas like in the movie, we don't really know what he's getting up to until the end. And then even then, it's just like Denzel's shutting that shit down. Yeah. So it's awesome.
Denzel is shutting that shit down. That's how my mom talks about Denzel. She's like, nope, Denzel wouldn't even let that happen.
He shuts it down. It's so true. Yeah, this movie it was so fucking awesome. The editing, the cinematography, I actually cannot believe how small of a budget it had, especially given it's like a period piece. And I'm always down for a period piece. I love just like the attention to detail in this movie. Like, fun fact that I read is apparently even all the like cars that we see in this are outdated for the time period, because I guess during that time from like 42 to 45 there wasn't any auto production because of like the war. And it's just like little details like that I'm like, hell yeah, that is cinema. That is what we make movies for, is to have these details and like accurate depictions of stuff. And then yeah, I don't know, I just had to shout that out because I'm just like blown away that what they were able to do with this such a small budget in this film. Oh my god, also sorry, really quickly, I want to shout out I don't know if he has a name in it, I can't remember, but the guy who goes around chopping down trees in their neighborhood. That was such a great, like, that was something where I was like, okay, you can tell this is a book and that this character just keeps popping up for some reason. And so I thought it was so funny to have that like anchor throughout the film. And that scene when he's like, Ezekiel. What? He's like, man. And he just comes out swinging at him.
The man right there.
There's a man right there. It was
get off the people's property. I love that shit.
Like chasing them away. And that's how it ends too, I'm pretty sure. Like he's like chopping down people's trees and they're just like, what's wrong with that guy? He's like, I don't know. It's like, don't worry about him. He's just enjoying his neighborhood. Oh my god, it was just so fucking good. Such an enjoyable experience.
Ezekiel.
Oh, I loved it. Loved every aspect of this film.
Yeah, it's hard.
Any final thoughts on Devil in a Blue Dress, Trey?
Probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite Denzel performances of all time too.
Yeah.
Yes, I was lucky to be able to talk about it with you on this glorious podcast.
Oh my God. Well, it was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much for recommending all these incredible films. It's been so much fun to expand my Denzel filmography and check off some of these films that have been just sitting on my watch list for years. I love having an excuse to do that. So yep, everyone, that is a wrap on our Gimme Three Denzel Washington films. 3 incredible films handpicked by my amazing guest, Trey Armstrong. As always, thank you to our listeners for tuning into this episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we're so excited to hear what you thought of these 3 films. If you love the Gimme Three podcast and would like to support us, here are 2 simple ways. One is automatic downloads. If you're on Spotify, subscribe to our show, click the settings wheel and toggle on that auto download episodes. This helps you guys listen anytime, anywhere, and it also helps us out by boosting our reach. Number 2 would be subscribe to our Patreon. For just $5 a month, you guys can access bonus episodes, spoiler-free movie recommendations, and so much more. So click the support the show or Patreon links in the episode description below. You guys can also follow us on Instagram at Gimme Three Podcast. That's GIMME, spell out 3 podcast. Share your thoughts on today's films and give us a follow while you're there. We'd love to hear directly from you guys. You can even send us a text through the link in the episode description. Tell us your top 3 Denzel films. Let's expand our watch lists together. And Trey, if you want, you can tell our listeners where they can find you on the socials.
I can't remember my Instagram name or anything.
Oh, that's okay.
Letterboxd at I think it's just Trey Armstrong 7. Yeah, follow me on Letterboxd. I think I'm pretty good on Letterboxd.
Oh yeah, we've got some really good reviews from Trey on Letterboxd, so definitely follow him.
We're locked. That was really good too.
We're locked. We're locked in on Letterboxd, my most used app. And you guys can find me on Instagram at Portrait of a Cinephile or on Letterboxd at Bella Efstratis. Anyways, thank you so much again, Trey, and thank you, listeners, for joining us on the Gimme Three podcast, and we'll see you at the movies.